Welcome to our two-part series on the Canon R6. Whether you're coming from an older DSLR into the mirrorless, or if you're just coming from a point and shoot, no matter what you're coming from, I'm going to run over the basics of the Canon R6. This is part one of a two-part series. The first one is going to be about the camera. The second one will be the camera menu. We'll go through each setting for photographers, not for video, but for photographers. So let's get started. If you're coming from an older DSLR to the new Canon R6, which is mirrorless, you'll have a little bit of trouble at first because you're always so used to looking through the viewfinder. Now you can use the flippy screen and see everything. It really won't take that long to get used to. I've used back 35 millimeter. I used 35 millimeter back in the 80s, and then medium format in the 90s, and digital in the early 2000s, all the way up to the new mirrorless cameras that we have now, which is just out of this world fantastic cameras. They are amazing what they can do. Now, if you buy the Canon R6, you can find it anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500. Most of you guys will probably have EF lenses that you still have. So you will need an adapter, RF to EF glass. You can even put the EFS lenses on here, but you will get the crop factor. But you'll need one of these. This one is a Mikey. I think it was $100. I think Canon's is $150, but you'll definitely need that to get your older EF lenses to fit onto the Canon R6. The battery grip is something I highly recommend. The fact that so much is electronic on this camera, it runs through batteries like crazy. I always have two batteries in the camera. They even upgraded the new battery for the mirrorless to be have a little bit more power, but still, I use a total of 6 batteries. I always have 2 in the camera, and either 2 more that are fully charged and 2 that are charging, or when I first get to a wedding, they're all full. So, but you know, I might shoot for a while, take out 2, put in 2 new ones, and keep it rotating, so they're always cycled, so I always have fresh batteries in the camera. You've got a lot of ports on the side of the camera. You got one for your mic jack, you got one for headphones, you've got your HDMI, you've got pretty much everything you need on the side. I'll go over that a little bit more when we get into the menu system, but it's not lacking anything in that area. You will be fine. One thing I love about this camera is it has 2 memory card slots. So I keep a 256 in permanently, and I have another 128 that I keep in that I'm constantly taking out and putting back into the computer. But when I finish up one of the bigger cards, whether it's a 256 or bigger, I usually keep those cards. I don't really delete them just because they're so cheap, and it's just yet another way to keep a backup of your work. So, you know, that's just my opinion. You can do that however you want, but the price of those memory cards versus losing pictures and having one more backup is, I see, very beneficial. Now, the camera shoots RAW, and it shoots camera RAW, and it shoots JPEG, and it shoots HEIF. HEIF is newer than JPEG. I don't really shoot either one. I probably should try the camera RAW. It's a little smaller file, but I'm kind of old and set in my ways, so I'm always just shooting full RAW. So I can't say don't shoot the Canon RAW because I really haven't tried it enough to know if I like it or how much I like it compared to the full RAW. So again, that's just something you'll have to try, and I need to try myself. So I will check that out very soon and get back to you what I found out. Now, one thing you will need to change when you first get the camera in the menu system, and I will go over that when we go over the menu, you definitely do not want it to take pictures with no card in the camera, because that, to me, I don't know why that's even an option. You should not be able to take a picture without having a memory card in your camera. I know when I was a young photographer, I was traveling with some friends, and it was 35 millimeter, and we saw this beautiful church in the mountains. I jumped out, took some pictures, went a few miles down the road, realized I didn't have any film in the camera. Yeah, I was young. What are you gonna do? But change your camera so it will not let you take a photograph unless you have at least 1 memory card in there. There just should not be any other setting. So set that first thing when you get it, as soon as you get out of the box. Turn that setting to not work unless you have memory cards in the slot. Also, with these new cameras, it's important to keep the firmware updated. I think the R6 had some overheating issues with some 4K video when it first came out. I think they fixed that with a software update, and I've updated to the 1.6, and I think I just saw yesterday they've got the 1.8 out now. I haven't gone to the 1.8, but I'll probably do that tonight or tomorrow. So you have to stay on top of your firmware, and even the firmware for your lenses, you need to stay on top of that as well. Also, the camera has up to 8 stops of image stabilization. But if you go in and you turn off the camera image stabilization, you're also turning off your lenses image stabilization, because as you guys know, back the older DSLRs for Canon, the lenses had the stabilization, not the camera body. This one has it built into the camera body, but just know if you turn it off in the camera body, it's going to turn it off for your lens also. It has a very cool feature on the back. It's called the Q button, and that, again, I'll go over that when I go over the menu, but it's very quick. Once you've got your screen open and you're shooting and you need to change something fast, you can hit that Q button, and it takes you to all your main settings, so you can change it really fast. It's all got It's also got custom modes that you can go in and switch to if you're in a jam. Say you're running from outside of a reception to inside to get a quick shot, and you know whether your settings aren't going to work, you can hit that emergency custom button and you're good to go. Mechanical shutter on it shoots 12 frames per second. The electronic shutter shoots 20 frames a second. You get some warping, they say, when you're shooting with the electronic. I haven't really shot much electronic. It's silent, but 12 frames is more than enough for the photography that I do, being weddings and models and family portraits, senior portraits, that sort of thing. I would never really need more than 12 frames per second, so I am fine with that. You may shoot a little different, maybe some wildlife, you might want 20, but I think most everybody will be just fine with 12 on the mechanical shutter, not have to worry about the warping on the 20 on the electronic shutter. The ISO on this camera, and this is one of the best things I think Canon has over any other camera, including any other Canon camera. I know the R5 gets a lot of hype, but the low light quality that you're going to get out of the Canon R6, I think is probably the best of any camera on the market, including Sony, including Canon's R5. The fantastic low light that you get, and being a wedding photographer, you know how important that is to have the best quality in low light. You can turn this thing to 12,800 and barely get any grain at all. And now that Photoshop has the noise in it, you can go crazy with it. The camera will go up to a total, I believe, of over 204,000 ISO. Now, I haven't gone that high, and I probably will not go that high, but it's good to know it's there. I have taken some at 25,000, and it looks pretty decent. I'd probably still run it through denoise and Photoshop, but you're up to 10,000, you're really good. It's absolutely incredible to take these camera back versus like the Canon 30D years and years ago, where 400 you really couldn't go over without getting grain. This camera at 400 looks better than it did at 100. So the Canon did an absolute masterful job with the low light on the Canon R6. It also has the new Canon X processor in it, and that really helps with the quality and sharpness of the image. It's really a good, it's a great combo, it really is. The shutter on it is up to 300,000, and most of the other cameras that I've used in the past are around 100,000 to maybe 150,000. I think maybe the 5D Mark IV had a couple 100,000, but the Canon R6 is a 300,000 shutter count camera, which is just awesome. That's just great. I love what Canon did with this camera. The screen on the back has 1.6 million dots per inch, so you have a very clear screen, and I believe when you're looking through the viewfinder it's over 3 million, so it's absolutely great. But remember, you're going to need batteries to run all this. If you're running that electronic viewfinder, everything on it's electronic, you're going to have to go through batteries like crazy. So always take at least 6 batteries with you if you're doing a wedding, and take chargers to charge them again, so that when your first 2 run out, you've got 2 more to put in the camera and leaving 2 more to charge. Just keep it a constant cycle, because you don't want your batteries to go dead, because then you're in trouble with your camera not working. So that'll be it for the first part of the Canon Part 2 series. That was just a little bit of an overview of the Canon R6. Our next full-size video to come out, I will do a walkthrough of the menu for photography. Well, I'll walk through and I'll show you my settings and why I use them, and you may use them differently, but I'll tell you what I do. And it's also very good at video. I'm not going to get into, I'm not an expert at video. The video I've done with it has been great, but I am not a professional videographer, so I will leave that to the videographers to go into that. But I do know that the basic filming, when I'm using it, it's done a fine job. So I'll leave it at that. But check back in soon for part 2. If we're helping out you guys, please click subscribe to our site. Have a good day.